Okay, so I need to talk about this Clayface trailer because I've watched it, I don't know, maybe 12 times now, and every single time I come back to it, I find something new, some little detail tucked into the corner of the frame, or a line of dialogue that hits differently when you realize what it's actually setting up. And look, I was one of those people who, when James Gunn first announced Clayface as part of the DCU slate, kind of tilted my head and went, really? Because Clayface is not exactly your first instinct when you're building a new cinematic universe. He's not Batman. He's not the Joker. He's not even Two-Face or the Riddler, who both feel like obvious cinematic choices. Clayface is weird. He's slimy. He's existentially horrifying in a way that's genuinely hard to put on screen. But then this trailer dropped, and I went, oh, they actually get it. So let's break this down. All of it. The tone, the imagery, the Easter eggs, what it means for the DCU's Batman, and most importantly, what it tells us about the kind of Gotham City that James Gunn and Peter Safran are building for this new universe. Grab a drink. This is going to be a long one. First, let's just talk about the trailer on its own terms, because I think some people watched it and immediately went into Easter egg mode and missed just how visually striking this thing is. The color palette alone is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Everything is this muted, almost amber-tinted desaturation, like Gotham has been filtered through old crime scene photography. It doesn't look like a superhero movie. It looks like a psychological thriller set in a city that is slowly rotting from the inside out. And that is a deliberate choice, because Clayface, the version they seem to be adapting here, is not a supervillain in the traditional sense. He's a tragedy. He's a man named Basil Karlo, a once great actor whose body became something he no longer recognizes. Something monstrous. And the horror of that, the body horror, the identity horror, is written all over this trailer's aesthetic DNA. The shots of him looking at his own reflection and the reflection not quite matching. Chef's kiss. That single image communicates everything you need to know about this character's psychology before a single line of expository dialogue. The production design of Gotham here also feels like it's pulling from very specific comic book runs. There's a neo-noir brutalism to the architecture that reminded me a lot of the Long Halloween aesthetic. Dark, cramped, vertical. A city that feels like it's always one bad decision away from collapsing on itself. That here's what I think is the most important takeaway from this trailer, and I don't think enough people are talking about it. This is a horror movie, not a horror-adjacent superhero film. Not dark and gritty, in the way that phrase got watered down and misused for a decade. This is genuinely, structurally a horror film that happens to exist inside a comic book universe. And that matters enormously for the DCU as a whole. Because what Gunn and Safran have been quietly building, and I think this trailer makes it explicit, is a DC universe where different corners of the universe genuinely feel like different genres. Superman is a hopeful, almost Spielbergian adventure. Supergirl, based on what we know, is a cosmic epic. And Gotham? Gotham is horror. Gotham is where the genre rules are darker, stranger, and more psychologically unnerving than anywhere else in this universe. That is genuinely exciting to me, because it means Batman, when we finally get there, doesn't have to be the same flavor as every other hero story. He gets to exist in a city that has its own cinematic identity. A city that has already been established as a place where the villains are terrifying rather than just threatening. Clayface is doing the groundwork for that. He is, essentially, the first monster Gotham has officially thrown at us in this new universe. And if the monster is this well-realized, this thematically rich, imagine what Batman is going to feel like when he finally has to face Gotham head-on. Let's talk about Batman. Because that's really what everyone wants to know, right? What does any of this mean for where the DCU's Batman is going? And the answer, I think, is more interesting than here's a villain Batman will probably fight eventually. The DCU's Batman, played by the brilliantly cast Andy Muschietti, with a script that's apparently been in development for a while, is going to be a Batman who exists in a Gotham that has already been shaped by the events of these villain-centric films. Clayface isn't just a standalone story. He's a piece of Gotham's mythology. He's a chapter in the city's history that Batman will have to reckon with. Think about what that means for how we meet this Batman. He's not going to be entering a blank slate of a city. He's going to be entering a Gotham that already has scars. A Gotham that has already had to deal with something like Clayface, something that defies normal criminal psychology, something that blurs the line between human and monster. And that shapes what kind of detective, what kind of symbol Bruce Wayne has to become. There's a version of Batman that works in a world where crime is understandable, organized, human. And then there's a Batman who has to exist in a world where the criminals are sometimes literally made of clay and can wear your face. That second Batman is philosophically more interesting to me. It demands a different kind of heroism. The Clayface film, if it does what this trailer promises, is essentially asking, what happens to a city when it faces something that challenges the very idea of identity? That challenges the line between who we are and what we become. And Batman, more than any other superhero, is a character fundamentally about identity, about choosing who you are, about the mask and the face beneath it. So in a very real sense, Clayface is telling the thematic story that Batman will later answer. The question, Batman is the response. Okay, now let's get into the fun stuff. Because there are details in this trailer that I think are pointing at very specific directions for the DCU's Gotham. First, the building in the background of one of the early shots. There's a name on the facade that's partially obscured, but if you pause it at the right moment, it reads Cord Industries. That's Ted Cord. That's Blue Beetle. And its interesting placement, it suggests Gotham exists in the same economic ecosystem as other DC characters we already know. The worlds are touching. Second, and this one's more subtle, there's a moment where a news broadcast is playing in the background of the scene, and the cheer mentions increased vigilante activity in the East End. That phrase, East End, is deeply specific to DC Comics readers. The East End of Gotham is Selina Kyle's territory. It's where Catwoman operates. Now, that could be nothing, but it could also be a very deliberate piece of bread crumbling. Third, and this is the one that got me the most, the detective investigating the Clayface killings has a whiteboard in his office covered in case notes. And if you zoom in, one of the victim profiles has the surname Dent, as in Harvey Dent, as in Two-Face. Now, is this the Harvey Dent? Probably not literally. The timeline doesn't quite work for him to be a victim. But it suggests that the Dent family is already present in this version of Gotham. And that means Two-Face's story could be much closer to the surface than anyone has said publicly. Here's my bigger picture read on all of this. And I want to be clear that this is theory territory. Educated, I think, but still speculative. James Gunn is building Gotham the way Tolkien built Middle-earth. Not all at once, not with one big story, but layer by layer, film by film, with each story adding a new piece of the mythology until the whole thing feels lived in and real in a way that a single movie could never achieve. Clayface is layer one of Gotham's monster mythology. He establishes that this is a city where the human form itself cannot be trusted, where identity is unstable, where horror is real and present and walking down the street in someone else's face. From there, I think we're getting a Gotham that slowly builds towards something operatic. The villains will get more complex, more philosophically challenging, until Batman has to arrive not as a savior, but as a response, as Gotham's answer to itself. And the Batman we're going to get, if this trailer is any indication of the universe's ambitions, is going to be the most thematically coherent version of the character we've ever seen on screen. Not because he'll be darker than past versions, or more grounded, or more fantastical, but because the world around him will have been built to make his specific heroism necessary in a way it has never quite been before. Clayface matters because he's the first brick in that wall. Look, I've been following DC adaptations for a long time. I've been burned before. I think most of us have. And I'm not here to promise you this is all going to be perfect, because nothing ever is. But this trailer, this specific trailer, made me feel something I haven't felt in a while when it comes to DC on screen. It made me feel like the people behind this actually understand what makes these characters and this city so enduring. They're not just adapting the iconography. They're adapting the soul of it. And I think Gotham is going to be spectacular. Drop your theories in the comments. I genuinely want to know what details you caught that I might have missed. If you're new here, subscribe, because we're going to be covering every single piece of DCU news as it drops. and I'll see you in the next one.